I was sitting around, before I get going on any talk, I sit around, how am I going to start this talk? Part of me wants to go, woo!
Yeah.
And then I started thinking about the story I heard, I think it was about Margaret Mead. Although don't quote me on that because I'm not really sure. That she would get up every morning and go, "It's great to be me! Thank God I'm alive!" At the top of her lungs. To remind us how good it is to be here. You know? We'll get back to that a little later. So today's talk is called There's Only One. New Thoughters have heard that a bit. There's only one. We begin every prayer with that. There is only one power, presence, love, and intelligence that is absolutely everything from the smallest particle of energy to the vastness of all that is. There is only one. Kind of depends on how you look at it, doesn't it? See, I got thinking about this, and we say this all the time, and you know, when you've gone through the practice and the classes, and you become a practitioner, and you go through ministry, and you steep yourself in this idea of the unity of life, it gets kind of synced in, and you start looking at things differently. We call that elevating our consciousness to a greater level of understanding that goes beyond the conditions that we're looking at. You know? And that's how it depends on how you look at it. Because when we start in life, we spend a lot of time developing this idea. We're taught it, we experience it, our senses tell us this, that it's me and everyone else. Right? Mm-hmm. So we come into our life with this idea. Well, I believe that we come into our life knowing that we are all one, that there is only one. And you know, that's actually true because every one of us is made up of the same particles. We're all made up of atoms. Atoms are all the same everywhere. You know? We're just a unique form of them put together as consciousness, which is a whole different talk. Honestly, it is. But that consciousness is living through us right now. Right? And that consciousness develops as this solitary experience that we have in life. Right? Anybody ever experienced that? Being alone? Feeling like you're the one, the only one who has ever experienced this? I got news for you. If it's got a name, you're not the only one. We've been doing it for a long time. But that attitude is often when we come into this idea of new thought, which is not, you know, new age. Honestly, it's not. It's about having a new thought to experience life differently. Right? When we come into new thought, we're all wrapped up in ourselves. You know, maybe we've been wandering around the world looking for some cosmos, some idea of why this is going on the way it's going on. We don't know. Or we've come from some other place in our spiritual journey where we've been confined to being less than and trying to live up to some idea that seems impossible. A lot of spiritual teachings do that. I don't particularly agree with it, but you know, hey, whatever path, it works for a lot of people. But we're individualized and we have this feeling of separateness, and we come into new thought and then people say, but there's only one. All of you guys. Right? And it doesn't really sync with our experience. So we start learning about why we're only one. Right? All of us together are only one. And we move into this idea that there is not only a power that lives in me, but lives through everything. It's available for me to use. Right? And we find out a little bit more about how to use that power, how to look at the world differently so that we can use that power, which is aligning our thoughts with the truth back of whatever condition we're experiencing. There's only one truth because there's only one. That truth is love. It may not feel like it at the moment. There can be moments like that, you know. But the real truth, with the capital T, is that there's only love that impels law, that creates all of this. which is why we're here right now as the divine embodied in a unique and wonderful way to experience itself as us. And that's what happens when we open up into this idea that we're only one, and then it goes from being me and everyone else to we and everyone else. Right? So you ever get that? You get a new thought is good at that. Life in the key of me turns into life of the key of we, and then there's still a lot of pointing fingers about they're wrong. Wait a minute. There's only one. There is no other. There is only one. And so the consciousness expands again into this idea that there is a unity of life unfolding through us and as us. And then we move a little bit farther down that path. And we can start saying, you know, our we extends, right? And we start thinking the we of all people on a spiritual journey. That's a good one. Except for them. This is the evolution of consciousness, right? So now we've moved our we into this idea of a greater understanding of the oneness of life. And we're able to extend that to a lot of people. And then there's that part in the back of the mind that says, except those despicable people over there that are doing those terrible things. And it's a catching point. Many of us get trapped right there. We stand on our spiritual pride and talk about there being only one, and that life is love unfolding, yet despise the person so caught in their own thinking pattern that they do despicable things. Now, a lot of people have talked about love thy neighbor as thyself. Well, thy neighbor may be Dahmer, you know. And that's the reality of this conditional life that we live in, is thy neighbor may not be the best person in the world and certainly may not be looking for spiritual sustenance and how to understand love as the impetus of life unfolding as this greater expression of joy through us. Yet we are to love them as well. We are to look beyond the condition of whatever caused the pain, the hurt, the isolation that hasn't got them out of the idea of me and everyone else, that me against the world, that pain that wants to express in the world as part of the world. This is part of the journey. It's a package deal. Everybody here fully evolved, never experiencing pain and only experiencing love? I saw them put their hand down. Reverend Bill is in my mastermind group, so I can discount that. Yeah, I mean, you know, it is truly the next stage of evolution consciousness is bringing us beyond that place of everyone except them and extending love even to them. Because, as was said long ago, they is us. That was an age-related joke. Some people will get it. And it's not easy. If it were really easy to do this, we'd all be walking on water. The physical conditions wouldn't impact us the way that they do. The errant thoughts that bring us into isolation and separation of any kind would not occur. We wouldn't be sitting around saying, cancel, cancel, cancel. Anybody ever get into that one? Oh, there's an errant thought, cancel, cancel, I don't want to buy that one. There's actually a place beyond that where you're not struggling against that, but just watching it go by and say, isn't that interesting that that thought exists in the universe? Not mine to act upon. And peace becomes integrated into our being. Now, that's what the journey of life is really about, is moving from a place of agitation and solitary separation from this idea that I'm all alone into the grandness of the oneness of life. And the more of that we can understand, the more we can implement in our day-to-day living. the more we can move beyond our fears of what will happen if I act in love in this situation. Because isn't that really what stops us? You know, I invite you to walk around Center City for about 4 hours on any given weekday and see how many people ask you for money. And see how often the fear in you stops you from giving. Oh, they're just going to use it for drugs. So what? Right? I can't walk over there. They may hurt me. Again, so what? When we understand that we are all one, we can begin to take down the walls that separate us from each other, separate us from evolving not only individually, but as a species. We are God embodied as consciousness right now, experiencing everything that's going on as God as consciousness embodied right now. And when we can keep that vision, that idea in the forefront of our minds, how we look at things changes. When it goes from this is a challenge to this is an experience. When it goes from this is a problem to this is an opportunity. When we can move beyond the fear that is ingrained in us from every angle in our society, that attitude, it's them, that we get from the media, we get from our friends, we get from our coworkers, we can get from our parents and our children, we can get from just about everywhere. When we can stand in the truth that there is only one, and that one is living in me as it is living in everything else, we can evolve our consciousness to a place of being the love we wish to see in the world. I say that frequently. And sometimes we fall down, and I have a perfect word until when we fall down, we find ourselves separating or pointing fingers, whatever. We can always stop and say, until now. Our class students know this well because they'll start doing whatever we all do in class, which is starting complaining about it's not working. And the universe is saying, yes, of course. Or some situation in their life that's going on. Because that happens when you start digging into your life in classwork. You know, when you take a class that is built specifically about evolving your consciousness, guess what's going to happen? All the stuff that's stopping you from evolving your consciousness shows up on your doorstep and says, hi, I'm right here. Want to pay attention to me? And the universe says, yes. Pay attention. When we can move beyond all that separation and that fear, what we call miraculous things start to happen in our lives. And as we begin to understand that what's happening is that there is this one life that we are living, this one moment of existence that we are experiencing, this one opportunity to choose how we are experiencing this life is happening right now. We can choose a higher path. We can choose to be the good that we want to see. We can choose to see the stuff that we don't want to see and see it with love. Because everything that happens that we consider negative outside of ourselves is something that is calling for our attention to heal. I used to hate that. I really did, because so many things call to me for healing. And I think, my goodness, there isn't that many hours in the day. Yet there is a way that I can participate in the healing of all of these things that are calling to me that doesn't take more than 5 or 10 minutes. It's called prayer. In this case, practical prayer, because it's effective. And so when something calls to me, and I'm not perfect at this by any means, folks, really. I have to say until now to myself. I don't want to tell you how often. Frequently enough that I've become very clear about when I need to do something about it, which is to stop and pray. Just even if it's just a 30-second prayer, that God is operating in this as the oneness of life right in this very moment now. And I am drawn to see love and good now. And the universe says, yes. Yes. That's how we can move from where we were to where we are and where we are going. So when you look around in the day's journey, in the week's journey, and you find yourself with that little clenched knot in the top of your stomach that says, I want to get angry as hell because they're doing what I have. Spot it, you got it. The only reason things rub against us is because we know it's in us too. Is to stop and see the truth back of that. To stop and see the life that is back of that, the good that is back of that, because it is there, awaiting our recognition in each moment. And the law responds to each thought, to the degree that we put power and love behind it. So I invite you as you go through your week, put some power and love behind your good thoughts. The world will be a better place. Namaste. Oh, wait. Sorry. You can clap, but I'm going to do this anyway. Stand up. All right. What we're going to do is we are going to shout, not shout, right? Thank God I'm me.
Thank God I'm me.
It's great to be alive.
It's great to be alive.
Amen.
Amen.